This endeavor in manual print was unfortunately nostalgic. I have books of handwritten poems that have transitioned to typewritten poems and musings from what I can figure out somewhere around 2012 to 2014. This task was like the old days when I pondered what I wrote, much more than the free writing I do now. I do this because changing the text and the editing is so much more time consuming when manual writing. I also prepared myself to write manually by changing my mindset to a creative mode by making tea and getting a biscuit. There is much more intention and brain activity when I manually write. My writing technology was a pad of white paper I have in my paper folio and a pen that was attached to the front of my grocery list flip book that has Cake Boss all over it. I reflect back to what this was like when it was indeed my primary means of writing. Either I wrote with a pencil so I could erase easily, had whiteout for a pen, but often in my personal writing, I would just scribble it out. My handwriting has never been lovely. My entire family has always told me I would be a doctor, as no one can read my handwriting. This all was evident as I wrote the story. From the title scratch on the paper, the sound, the feel of the pen in my hand, the roughness of the paper against my hand, and the slight jiggle of my IKEA desk was like a time machine. I was in the indents on the page, in the scratching sound, in the scribbles that showed my train of thought. I was present in pauses to think of my next words or just to sip tea. I write manually in short bursts these days. Writing manually is not the academic endeavor it was in the time of Plato or Socrates. It drips with convenience of technological tools to make writing easy. I have a cup full of pens and pencils at my disposal, but I chose the one that was closest to me. I have an entire folio of paper. I wasn't writing to preserve knowledge or story for generations or prove my worth and place in society. I was writing a silly bedtime story to amuse my partner later. I was writing in a liminal space, a task for academia, but wrapped in the silliness of making my partner laugh later tonight when we actually get to FaceTime. She will never get to read it in this form, as I'm sure some of you cannot either, even with the pictures. My handwriting is illegible at times, but I am there in those scribbles. My person is far more apparent in my manual writing piece than typewritten words on a screen or even printed on paper. The clack of the keyboard does not reveal the unconscious pieces of my personality revealed in handwriting analysis. Ironically, I taught elementary school kids how to print and handwrite in the early parts of my career. If I slow down, I can write like a grade 2 teacher. I transitioned to typed text in my professional life much sooner than my creative life. Academic and professional correspondence is perceived so much differently if typed. I think less bias of one's perceived intelligence is overt if the computer does the typing for you. I could write the same sentence handwritten and typed, and its perception would be completely different because of my obvious poor handwriting. I took a course from a former criminal profile turned author about handwriting analysis and what unconscious cues are given in handwriting alongside what personality traits accompany certain characteristics of the letter and word formation. It's fascinating to me that oratory voice can be reflected in the mechanics of manual writing, and we have removed it with typing. Uniformity and normativity standards dictate type. I guess I shouldn't really be shocked, since normativity is found everywhere, from how you view relationships to how we treat differences like skin color or disability. My unique voice once sprawled itself on a page in my loopy, scratchy writing, and now that voice is only found in the interpretation of grammar conventions and vocabulary choices. Like the evolution of writing, the injection of convenience to the process of recorded text has changed not only the economy of text into normality, but the removal of the individual. The Industrial Revolution and printing press, to all the way to computer technology, took the person out of writing in a lot of ways. Once I made the professional switch from manual to type, The storage options for copious amounts of text in the form of hard drive storage and cloud computing have made creative writing pursuits sustainable without needing an entire room to store my tomes of writing. I still handwrite often when listening to lecture-style information. I have done some research into information retention with writing and found that yes, more information is retained even into short-term memory when manual note-taking happens. I found it really interesting that laptop note-taking may actually hinder information retention. Equally interesting to me is that brain activity may increase when manual note-taking by evidence suggests reading and listening tend to activate different parts of the brain. However, and I quote, semantic processing is independent of input modality. Bushwitz et al. 2011. The later study is so interesting to me, and it outlines the differences in spoken or written language as it pertains to dyslexia. I could write a whole dissertation on this, maybe. I read a CBC article recently that talked about how hip-hop culture was paralleling traditionalist indigenous culture. I think we have a liminal space with text, regardless if it's handwritten or typed, that allows for oral tradition to exist in music. The lyrics written exist to fuel or to immortalize thought orated in a socially acceptable and normified way for a community that has had its voice silenced in premeditated and systematic ways. This activity forced me to consider when I prefer manual writing to typewriting, and to evaluate where the individual lies in the process of writing. My conclusion: I write much more creatively, purposefully, and with my individuality showing when I manually handwrite. In order to conform to norms and appear intelligent, professional, and academic writing has become, by default, typewritten.